from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in my childhood bedroom in the village of Wollaston in Northamptonshire. I'm back at home spending a little bit of quality time with my parents, who are in my support bubble at the moment since I've come back from Australia. Not allowed to have any other overnight visits at the moment, whilst lockdown is still in the process of being eased. But I'm looking out over, a bit of an empty field at the moment. It's often full of wheat in the summer, but we're not quite there in summertime yet. In fact, it snowed a couple of days ago, and that must mean the domestic cricket season is starting here in England.
The cricket season lingers on here in Australia. Jim Maxwell, not in Sydney, but up at Surfers Paradise. I'm up here for a clinical trial related to a stroke I had a few years ago. So that's the reason for being here, not the sun and the sand, but a little bit of explorative stuff to see what can happen. But as I say, the cricket season goes on. We've still got the One Day Cup and the Shield final to come into April, which is new territory for Australian cricket.
Hello, everybody. This is Charu Sharma for All India Radio, back in Bangalore, where the headlines are once again hogged by COVID news. Not just in the city and the region, but the entire country. And I suppose it's very difficult to create these bio bubbles or whatever, but the big daddy of them all, the IPL 2, is struggling because of these cases and how to handle it and how to move on. But the country is once again just not in a very good position, sadly.
That's not good news to hear, Charu. But Jim, good on you for doing your bit for medical research. Hope it goes all right there up at Surfers. But the Indian Premier League is underway, the biggest domestic cricket tournament in the world. But COVID having an impact once again. At the time of recording right now, 4 players have tested positive for COVID-19. They are all-rounder Daniel Sams and opener Devdutt Pudikal from Royal Challengers Bangalore, Delhi Capitals Axar Patel and Kolkata Knight Riders Nitesh Rana. Well, these positive tests happened while they were carrying out their 7-day mandatory hotel quarantine. There's been about 10 groundsmen also reported to have tested positive as well at Mumbai's Wankhede Stadium. So, Charu, what is the latest in terms of the numbers and those directly involved with the IPL?
Well, I must confess, nothing more for the last 24 hours or so, Alison, but the IPL is the big definitive cricketing juggernaut. So despite these cases and despite the adverse news, as it were, the preparations continued. And of course, we're now starting out with the IPL. So it's a health and safety headache for the BCCI and all other agencies concerned, particularly the franchises, because there are multiple venues. There will be a fair amount of travel in a country such as India. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but to have a bomb-proof, biosecure bubble is not easy. It's obviously too late to shift it anywhere now, Alison, and they just have to try and get more and more secure somehow. I must confess, though, sadly, I don't think we've heard the last of positive cases with some stakeholder or the other concerned with the IPL. By the way, luckily for RCB, Devdutt Pudikal, our local boy here who did very well in the T20s in the recent past, is now negative. So he definitely is a part of the action.
Now, the BCCI Vice President Rajiv Shukla has said that in order to cope with the rise in coronavirus cases, the only solution for the IPL is vaccination. Although remember, of course, vaccines don't even give protection until 3 weeks after you've had the jab. The ethical question about sports stars jumping the queue, if you like, is one that we've had on Stumped before. Jim, can you see the IPL, going ahead and being completed as planned, given all of this?
We can't take anything for granted, as we've seen for the last 12 months, no matter what plans are put in place. So it does seem to jeopardise the structure and the flow of the competition if this continues to occur. So we've already noticed, for instance, in our own domestic competition in Australia, that the Sheffield Shield didn't actually have full 10 rounds. They've only had 8 because of COVID and teams unable to play. So you make some adjustment, I guess, but it's certainly not ideal.
Adaptability seems to be the key, doesn't it? You have to react and respond to circumstances as they arise. Another story that I want to mention this week is from the ICC, who have announced that trials are going to take place, allowing for player substitutions to be trialled in first-class cricket with a view to potentially being adopted in international cricket. Now, we talk about player substitutions. Of course, there are already concussion subs and even more recently COVID replacements allowed in those particular special circumstances. So a COVID replacement allowed if a player tests positive during a match. But this trial of replacements is called unqualified replacement players. So tactical substitutions for absolutely any reason, unqualified. So there's a fair bit to unpick about this and the impact that substitutions, can have on a game of first-class cricket. And do we think this is a good thing or not such a good thing?
Well, all these rules and regulations can be perverted and abused, of course. That's what you worry about. But it's long been the case in Sheffield Shield and certainly grade cricket in all parts of Australia that if for some reason a player is pushed up to another level one week and can't play the next, then you replace him. But when it comes to injuries, concussion, COVID, how far are we going to allow this to run? Are we just going to, like football, have a full bench of substitutes and they can come and go as you please? Probably. That's the way of the world. I don't like it, but I know Charu is a great fan of the sub. Other going to play a lot more from now on.
You've been very soft today, Jim. I'm delighted at this change. Rather than saying, the hell, it should not happen. I'm all for substitutions. If you've got a number in your squad, which is say 14 or 15 or whatever is the official number for that particular form of the game, well, make the rest useful. And let's not overcomplicate it because, of course, one of the reasons you mentioned a few, Alison, already, concussion, this, that, and the other, people are carrying injuries, niggles all the time, and they're pushing themselves and getting into worse situations and having to be laid off for 3 or 5 months. But if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 people in the squad waiting in the pavilion, doing what? Fetching drinks? Come on, they've got to be more useful. So 2 things will happen. One, I think standards of the game will increase. The freshest lot are playing all the time. Or going to the fact that people are misusing these substitutions. It's just that players are available. And depending on the changing conditions or your changing requirements, substitute. What's the big deal? Let's get on with it. Because maybe 50 years ago, we were saying, a white ball, a one-day game? Oh, my God, no. So, things evolve. And if that's the way that cricket's going to evolve, go for it. Other sports do, and they're also very popular and famous. So what's the problem?
It could be useful in a qualified sense. It needs some thought to go into exactly how best it should be used. One thing it would do is take away all that angst over choosing a like-for-like replacement, which is what has to happen currently for concussion or COVID sub. And then there's, debate over, well, is this player genuinely a like-for-like? If it's just, you're allowed to substitute, bring in who you want, swap one player out for another.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Now on Stumped, with just over 100 days to go until the new 100-ball competition begins in the UK, another high-profile player has joined the party.
The throw come into the striker's end and Taylor grounds her bat for the 100. 100 not out for Sarah Taylor off 93 balls.
Well, that's former England wicketkeeper Sarah Taylor making 100 there, and she's come out of retirement to join the Welsh Fire, where she'll play alongside Australia's World Cup winning captain Meg Lanning. Now, I spoke to Taylor soon after that announcement that she'd be playing in the competition. I spoke to her about her coaching role with Sussex, her battle with anxiety, and her decision to play in the 100.
Well, look, they asked me last year if I wanted to do it, and I sort of kind of like shooed them away and said, no, thank you, not in a place to. But you know what? Keep me in mind for next year. And they did. They kept their word. They did. They asked me at the beginning of the year just to see where I was at, really. And I did get another offer as well. So it was kind of like, okay, maybe the seed had kind of been planted to potentially come back and play. And then I was having a look at my life, and I've got, my full-time job. I've got my job at Sussex. And I was like, do you know what? Foundationally, my life is really, really good. So why not? Why not just go and play for fun and enjoy it and see what I can get out of it? And look, I get to play with the likes of Meg Lanning, who is a world-class player, and I'd rather have her in my team than against her. So that was a massive draw. And also Matthew Mott, he's obviously phenomenal in the work that he's done with the Australian girls. So I thought from a coaching point of view, it'd be brilliant to work with him as well. So it did tick a lot of boxes to play at Welsh Fire. And I'm glad I'm doing so.
And I have to say, you must be at a cricket ground at the moment, because I can hear either a lawnmower or a leaf blower in the background at the moment.
So it's actually construction. Sorry about
that. Oh, that's all right. Just so people are aware. You've had time out of the game, obviously, when you retired in 2019. How much cricket have you played since then? Have you been playing, recreationally? Yeah, how much cricket have you played since your international retirement?
I think the people that know me know that I haven't picked up a bat since I retired in 2019. So it was only until the offers kind of came in that I'd picked up a bat, which was, I think, mid-January at the start of this year. So, I did have to find my bag and dust it off and get all my stuff together. I was almost kind of like, I tell you what, I'll have a hit, see how I go. If I'm playing all right, then I might give this a go. But it was kind of a win-win for me. If I didn't play, then it was fine, and if I did, then that's fantastic. But I had a good net. I batted like I was back in 2006 when I made my debut, and I think that's what was the draw really as well. So I enjoyed kind of being that girl again rather than the batsman when I retired. So it was just a nice feeling again to just enjoy the cricket.
And is it a lot about the positioning of the 100 itself? I'm interested in where you feel it sits in terms of the evolution of the game, and there's now professional domestic structure, which wasn't there when you were playing cricket. So where do you see the 100 and its role in the women's game?
I think it's massive for the women's game. I think to have those teams where we're kind of branded alongside the guys. So it's obviously one team but two squads, essentially. That's how it's looked at, isn't it? So I think it's massive for us. We have to keep progressing the women's game. You look at the talent that's coming through. Unfortunately, sometimes we lose a lot of youngsters because they have to go off and earn money. They have to go off and, have a career in something, which is absolutely fine. But these girls that want a career in cricket haven't been able to do so. So like you say, the domestic structure's there, but I think the 100 can really push this game forward, and we try and get as many professional women, girls in the game that we should rightly have, I think, and hopefully not lose any players.
When you retired, anxiety was a key factor in you making that decision. What have you managed to do, and how are you managing yourself now that you're able to get to a point where you feel and you want to come back to playing cricket again?
Yeah, the foundations are there. I'm really happy with my job. I'm really happy working with Sussex, the pros and the pathway. That's an exciting and tough venture for me.
That's the mental health programme, is that the one?
So we've got the Sussex hub here, but obviously the coaching side of things as well. It's just I think I was struggling with the foundations of who I was when I was playing for England. So I was away all the time. I didn't know whether I was coming and going. My anxiety was just fluctuating all the time. My agoraphobia with the travelling, that was kicking in every time. It was just a case of trying to find balance, and I couldn't find that. I didn't know where that was coming from. So then all of a sudden, I now look at my life and I'm extremely balanced. I'm doing things that I want to do that make me happy. Yeah, it's just now a luxury that I can. Do you know what? I do enjoy cricket. Now I can play it for fun, which obviously I couldn't do because it was my living, and that sounds a bit odd, but yeah, I've got my living, and now the cricket's a fun bit.
Sarah, best of luck with the 100. Can't wait to see you with gloves on and with bat in hand once again. Thanks for chatting to us on Stumped.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Well, that was Sarah Taylor on why she's chosen to come out of retirement to play for Welsh Fire in the 100. Jim, Charu, she spoke really well there. But in terms of the women's game, we've talked a lot about Stumped, haven't we, about sort of being the change you want to see. But, the visibility that the women's game is going to have through the 100 is a huge positive.
The whole concept of being a professional is for one to be able to earn a livelihood. And, the amount of effort that goes in, if you can't earn a livelihood, then it can lead you to a certain amount of schizophrenia, saying, who am I? What am I going to be? But, I do want to once again emphasize the role of counseling. As maybe now, according to Sarah, more and more youngsters or young girls are taking to the game, I think so much more the need to counsel them about all the options or all the extent of the career and the commerce involved, because we can't have too many people go into something where they're not able to get a sight, because sporting careers are short. So yes, you can be a professional, but it's not going to take care of, for most people, your entire life. So a little bit of additional counseling, I think, is also equally important as the opportunities that are being created.
Yes, I think the exposure that women's cricket's obviously getting through things like the 100 are important. But it's interesting. I had a comment from someone the other day who said to me, I know they've loved cricket for a long while. They enjoy watching women's cricket more than men most of the time because the women get on with it. They just think they've got the right idea about playing to the spirit of the game, apart from their obvious improved skills as they become better athletes. They get rewards for playing the game. So, look, everything's looking up for women's cricket. And apart from all the usual things around World Cups and T20s, I'm also looking forward to seeing what happens at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, when women's cricket will be part of the program. It's the best thing that's happened to cricket in the last couple of years.
Now, we did hear Sarah talk there about playing alongside Meg Lanning at Welsh Fire, described her as world-class, absolutely. And Lanning this week actually captained Australia to a new world record. This was the Australian women's team winning their 22nd consecutive one-day international. And that beat the run set by Australia's men some 16 years ago. And not only did the Aussie women break that record, they then celebrated by taking a sightseeing hike up Mount Maunganui. Then they went back out and won ODI number 23. Jim, just give us the context then of just how big an achievement this is, a run of this kind.
Well, it's a huge achievement, and yet I'm sure every member of that Australian team knows that it's ambition unfulfilled because of what happened in 2017. When they got knocked out of the World Cup. It doesn't matter how many games they win between now and 2022's World Cup. Yes, they'd hope to keep the streak together, I suppose, through a series against India and then the Ashes. But that is the mission. That is what's really hanging over them. And that's why I think they're doing so well. The power of the batting in particular is as good as women's cricket's ever had, I think, when you go down the list. So big achievement, but they're still hungry, very hungry.
They really have swept all before them. Their last defeat, by the way, October 2017 against England in Coffs Harbour was when their last defeat came. So quite the run. Can they keep it going through that World Cup, as Jim says? Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped here on All India Radio. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sport. Make sure you use the hashtag BBC Stumped. Thanks to my co-host, Charu Sharma, and Jim Maxwell, and to you for listening. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service, in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.